Hello, everybody. Welcome to the XP Billionaires podcast. You've already had one theme song. Well, here's another. I'm done. No, nobody's going to chastise me for that. I feel like I deserve it.
Don't worry, I'm saving it for later.
Oh, okay. That's fair. All right. I appreciate that. All right. Welcome to the show. Rayfe Thegrum, Sky Knight, the Mel Zerker. We are the XP Billionaires. And if you don't already know that, maybe this is your first episode. We are RPG aficionados. We like them. We talk about them. And we're pretty casual about it. So, welcome to the show. So, let us say hello to the hosts. Sky Knight. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm all right. What's going on with me? I have no idea. I was very productive today. I had this, you see, I suffer from conditions that affect my productivity, let's put it that way. And then today I was just like, I'm going to do 3 loads of laundry.
And the world thanks you for it.
Apparently.
And apparently I am the world. All right, Mel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I got my nice scented candle. I'm relaxed. Yeah, that's about it. That's all I got. I mean, that's all you need, right?
Well, yeah, although I'm pretty sure it's mandatory that if you say you have a scented candle, you have to say what scent it is.
Oh, that's it. Okay, hang on. Can I smell it without burning my nose?
Please, please don't hurt yourself.
I think it's I want to say it's like a summertime fruit. I want to say there's some peach and maybe some strawberry in there. That's my assumption. I did get a little close and got a little burning hair, so I'm gonna stop doing that.
Yeah. Come on. I said be careful. How is it just not a label on the candle?
This is my cat jumped up on my desk once and flicked his tail over the candle, and you smelled the burning fur, and he was just like, "What was that? What? What happened?" Like, he did not understand how it happened.
Burning cat. That's the smell of old McDonald's pizza.
What?
Sorry, no. My dad used to try to scare me as a kid and tell me that the pizza, like McDonald's used to do these little mini pizza things for kids, like part of the Happy Meals, at least here in Canada. I don't know about anywhere else, but he used to tell me that the pepperoni was made of cattails.
Delightful.
I know. That's my father for you. All right. So before we get into more and more family trauma, why don't we actually have a topic about video games? I feel like maybe we should do that. That seems like a good idea. So we are into the month of April. So this month we're going to try ourselves another month-long series on different aspects of the same topic. So as for the topic for this month, we have decided to talk about our gaming controls. The way I see it, the controls are basically what it's going to make or break the overall enjoyment of the game. Unless you're, one of those people who just watch streamers play video games, and then, well, there's your sense of enjoyment. But if you actually want to, dig in and get in part of it, I think the controls are very important. So I figured to start things off, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of our preferences for game controls, especially, when we play RPGs. So let's get right into that. So the first question that I want to start off with, what are some of the controls that you guys will typically adjust or change when you first boot up an RPG? What's got to be a certain way for you? Sky, why don't you start us off today?
All right. I'm going to say the thing that really gets me is camera movement controls. I hate inverted camera controls with a passion. There's nothing intuitive to me about pressing down to look up. Now, luckily, nowadays you don't see it set as default very often, but every time I've had it set as default, I've changed it, because it's just so frustrating. It's just so frustrating. And it's one of those things that's just so hard to get used to, at least for me. So that's the thing I always jump to. I can get used to just about anything else, but I don't know. That one always gets me.
Yeah, see, I this is where you and I differ. Like I absolutely need inverted camera controls. Mel, I know normally we let you go on here, but I got to argue with this one for a minute, so I hope you'll indulge me.
Oh, I've been waiting for this fight. Fight, 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 fight. I'm like that kid on the playground.
Fair enough, but no, I don't know. I can't see it any other way. Like I grew up with, you know, playing games like X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, which I know you've played, or at least played one of the iterations of it. And games like Descent Free Space. Like that was one of the free games I got with my computer that we mail ordered in for or something. I can't remember. But like those always had those inverted controls. So I've just gotten so used to it that it's how it needs to be for me. So I just like did you end up changing those when you were doing your piloting games too, or
Um, no, that's an entirely different thing.
I, well I don't know because I mean it's no different than shifting your perspective with the camera.
Well,
So
No.
I'm with Sky on this. Like it's different. Like the camera is not a ship.
Yes, yes,
It's
that's
not the camera is not have a throttle or
but
not
the,
yeah.
throttle.
It's and like when I was playing TIE Fighter, it was with a joystick.
right.
It was
But
an entirely
but we're
different.
using joysticks now with controllers.
No, but that's not the same thing. The with the joystick, the movement and the camera were the same thing. Do you see what I mean?
I guess I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like
Yeah, no, it's
like I
like
need to treat my people like I treat my starships. Like I don't know, it works better.
well, the 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 thing is it doesn't even like to me it's like comparing apples to oranges. Like the controls are so different that there's nothing that throws me about that. And and I associate a joystick, with a ship and how a ship moves. A controller, is playing games with a controller. I'm usually playing a game where I'm controlling a person. And I don't think of when I look up, I think, raise my eyes up or lift my head up, right? Like up means up to me. When it comes, to being a person.
I I guess I don't get it. Like when the
It's not
camera
like there's any
controls are
wrong
different.
answers here.
No, I know. I'm trying to make sense of it
It's I wonder
because of
if
this reasoning.
I wonder if it's different because of how we view the games. Because you've talked before about this, and I can't pull back a specific instance, but that your the way that you play games and the way that you kind of like observe is maybe a little different than how like because I am in that character, like I am that person. So it does feel contrary to point down to look up because I'm the person. But if I'm in a ship, well, I'm like, well, of course I have to pull down to go up. That makes sense, right? I wonder if it's something like that. Like, are you a viewer or a just a thought?
Maybe. Like, because I remember when I didn't have the ability to change those camera controls, and it was the first four dot hack games. You could only rotate the camera with the L and R buttons, and L was left, R was right. And that confused the hell out of me to the point where I would just double tap them. So anytime I turned a corner, it would just completely like shift it for me. It's like put me into like forward view at that point, depending on what camera angle I was at or what direction I was facing. But like that was the only way I could properly like navigate those games because they were just like that control scheme was just so awkward and foreign to me. I don't get it. Maybe it's my backwards left-handed brain. Like, I don't know.
I mean, it certainly could be something to do with brain wiring and how our brains interpret controls, which is
Yeah,
why it's always best to have options, right? Or to be able to remap the controls, because what's going to be natural to one person isn't going to be natural to another. I mean, people complain about the controls in Grim Fandango all the time, to have a not RPG, but and me, it's just like second nature intuitiveness. Despite the fact that they are kind of awkward in terms of movement anyway. But, what is intuitive to one person isn't going to be intuitive to the next.
yeah, no, I understand. Now, listeners, if any of you have studied neuroscience in any way, shape, or form, help us understand this because it's actually really fascinating. Like the differences here. Like I know we're making it sound like I'm making it sound like one should be right and one shouldn't be, but it's not the case. Like obviously, but. But if you guys have any input for that, please let us know. I would love to hear more about it. But that being said, let's move on to what Mel's adjustments are.
So you guys made me realize that I have brand loyalty through this conversation because I realized that I basically try to make every controller into a PlayStation controller or as close as I can get. I'm just used to it, and it's strange because I played like Xbox for a long time. I definitely started computer games later. But like my first system was a Sega, and then I sort of like ended up skipping until PlayStation, owning one at least. So it seems like it's sort of like defaulted to me that the PlayStation is the right control scheme. The Switch, I really struggle with for some reason. I will regularly just completely click the wrong buttons, and it's one of those reasons why I don't really like to play games that have reactions built into them unless I'm on a PlayStation. I kind of didn't realize that until I sat down and thought about it. Maybe it was just a formative moment in my life, and I'm like, this is the way it works. But yeah, it's pretty explicit now that I've kind of laid it all out.
I think one of the things when people first start gaming should actually do, and many don't get the chance to for financial reasons, is to play things on as many systems as possible, because those formative times are so important about training your reflexes and your body learning what's comfortable for you. And if you don't get used to switching control schemes a lot early on, it just gets harder and harder for you later down the line because the habit gets so ingrained. I'll go into more of that a bit later, but because this is one advantage I do have of not being a console gamer early, is that I kind of ramped up on all sorts of different control schemes, everything from various PC game controls, which can vary widely, to the PS2, and then we had, but most of our RPG life, we've had both PlayStation and Nintendo's consoles and portables and whatnot the whole time, and switched back and forth fairly consistently.
Yeah, I think this is actually good to kind of lean into the next question that I had for the conversation, because Mel, you were talking about like brand loyalty. I I understand that perspective, but I have an issue with the term brand loyalty, which I'll get into later.
You're
But
not wrong. You're not wrong. I was just like, what? How do I frame this? Right? That, like,
no,
this
no,
is
no,
the
no,
right
no.
answer.
I know, but you'll understand what I mean in a second too, because that yeah. But yeah. So the next question: do you find newer control schemes easy to adapt to, um, especially if say an RPG series is continually changing them? Like Final Fantasy will always do something a little different, include this, change that. Now they're modifying their entire combat systems as they go. Like so how does that adaptability kind of work for you?
So for the most part, I adapt fairly easily, like I implied, to new control schemes. I mean, just constant switching back and forth between Nintendo and PlayStation is that'll it kind of gets you used to the process of adaptation. So that like maybe the first couple hours, if you've been playing a PlayStation game for a while, then switch to a Nintendo one. First couple hours be like, oh yeah, fuck. But after that, I'm okay, right? What I do find throws me for a loop sometimes is some of the controls, some of the new buttons, like on modern systems. Like, for example, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 had the plus button on the Switch as the menu button. And partially it's the fact that it's a new button, but it's also partially the fact that I am one of the few buttons I think that is most consistent in RPG controls is the top button on the right hand side, whether it's the triangle on a PlayStation, whatever it is on the Nintendo, I never remember. I'm used to that being the menu button.
Yeah, this is becoming the norm too because I've played a couple of games on the PS4 now where the option button is for the main menu. So it's one we're gonna have to start getting used to a little bit more, just because it seems to be the way it's going. They're mapping things so differently now, which whatever. I mean, you've got more buttons, you need to use them. I get that, and even now, like if you want to enlarge the map, you have to use the touchpad. I mean, they didn't really get a lot of other uses out of the touchpad with the PS4, quite honestly, so they had to figure something out with it. But yeah, like no, I completely get that. Because I've struggled with that too. You're absolutely right.
Well, and the weird thing was though, is that one really bothered me, but adapting to the PlayStation ones didn't give me as much trouble, and I don't know why. Like, I've had no problem whatsoever pressing Option for the main menu in Persona 5 Strikers. Or pressing on the touchpad for the map. And I don't know why I could go do that seamlessly. But that plus button, I played that game for 120 freaking hours. And I still, like, almost the entire way through, drove me cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And it didn't help, too, that it had that sort of, like, delay where after you exited the menu, like, it was, sorry, because what I was pressing for the menu button was actually the map button.
Yeah.
And then there'd be a delay taking you out of there. You can directly transfer into the menu.
Yeah.
Oh, drove me nuts.
And well, you're also forgetting one other thing too. Like I've always been used to that button on other Switch games as the pause button. So I think to use the plus button as my pause in the middle of, say, a fight. But in battle, the plus button has a completely different use. It activates the chain battle, the chains finish.
Oh, maybe that's the problem. It just had so many functions depending on where you were in the game
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
think
and
I
I'm
think I think it was not very well mapped.
and I'm finding this happens a lot in games recently, actually, that instead of having a button be a constant rule, it's like only true in some situations. Like
Yeah.
in this situation, it's a sneak attack, but in this situation, it's a talk to your ally. And then, like I'm noticing more and more that there's like multiple uses in multiple parts of the game, which is weird.
Yeah, and sometimes it works if it's like if there's a logic to it. If there's a logic to it, I sometimes I can get behind that. But other times, it's difficult, particularly if they don't like show like have a thing that shows which button to press for X thing. As they can, which they can sometimes fit into certain menus and whatnot. But yeah, some of these sometimes they really give you one that throws you for a loop.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, Mel, what about your adaptability?
Yeah, well, I've sort of already, alluded to this, but it takes me a long time to get used to a control screen that isn't obvious to me. It takes me quite a while. Like, I'm gonna say, like, up to like 10 hours, depending on how often I'm using a button, to really understand the new layout. And it doesn't bother me unless this is a game that expects me to be fast. I'm generally not that frustrated if I click the wrong button and I go back a screen. I'm like, well, that's my fault, whatever. I'm not that bothered. But when the game expects me to do like quick button presses, I'm just like, nope, nope, I'm gonna get this wrong. There was this just a small thing in Ghost of Tsushima where you had to cut through bamboo, and you had to push a series of buttons, and I was just like, I am never gonna get this. Like it's just impossible for me. Like I don't think about the button commands in that way. And thankfully that one you can build up over time, and I just memorize the pattern with where I put my finger rather than buttons. But if it's something where they want me to be doing combos and stuff in gameplay to play it, it's probably not going to work for me. Like I'm just not that kind of player in general. And if I'm already working against a control system I'm not familiar with, yeah, it's not going to be a fun time.
Oh, I totally relate to that. I had they threw something like that at me when I was playing Lost Odyssey on the 360, and basically it's a sequence where you're in a ship and you're flying and you have to input certain button commands to like not get hit. And the thing was, it's the first game I ever freaking played on an Xbox, and nothing else in the game had prepared me for this moment. I had no idea what the button commands were. Like I had just got like the layout was similar, so I was just going by, usual JRPG control instinct, and it had served me perfectly well up until that point. But as soon as they were like, "Oh, press the X button," I'm just like, "Which one's the X button?"
Yeah, it's weird that you just have to study the controller every time you play a new game sometimes, and even then you're already so used to it. No matter how much prep or looking that you do, you're always going to have that moment where it's just like, nope, nope, this is the wrong controller.
And now I can sort of do like those time button things on a PlayStation controller because that's the controller I've used by far the most.
Yeah.
But it's taken me years to be even be able to make a passing attempt. Many years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. Now, yeah, so with me, like I don't have the same issue going between Nintendo and Sony. But one of my big issues, and this is where the brand loyalty thing kind of comes in that I was talking about, I play a lot of imports on Sony devices. A lot of them. And this is the biggest problem for me is because when the control scheme I've known for forever changes just because of the game's region, this is where I get completely bungled and it takes me forever to get back to it. Like X is confirm, not circle, damn it. So like I'll play a region, a Japanese game or one of the nice Bandai Southeast Asian imports where they have an English translation, but the command input is circle and not X for confirm. X is back. That that's Nintendo style. That doesn't work for me. And once I get the hang of it at one point, I come back and play a regular North American region game and I get confused again. Like this is kind of where it gets me the worst. But for everything else, I've learned to basically memorize by feel. So once I'm holding the controller in my hand, I know what I've got and I know what my control scheme is typically supposed to be. At least when it comes to the basic command inputs. And somehow that seems to work for me better than anything else. Like aside from this whole regional thing.
Yeah, and that's the easiest to do on PlayStation because the controllers are so, like, really haven't changed that much.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess Xbox too, though. I don't play on Xbox, but I know they really haven't changed their controllers much.
Well, your PC controller is meant for Xbox too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is. It is an Xbox controller. But like PC/Xbox controllers, like, are still all pretty much the same.
Yeah,
Look and feel, for the most part. So, despite console generation changes, you can develop that feel over time.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So the last question: has there ever been an RPG that you've encountered where the control scheme just made you turn it off and never look upon it again?
Not really. I can't think of one. I mean, most games I've played that have weird control schemes either have the option for, like, a different controller or the ability to remap the controls. So, yeah, I can't really think of one.
All right, no, fair enough. And this was a bit of a random one just to see if anything ever existed out there for you. So, yeah, no, that's quite all right. Mel, how about you?
So it's not so much. I'm gonna say yes. So I'll get to that first. But it's not so much that I'm like quitting because I'm like, oh, stupid controls, and I throw it down out of anger. It's more like I think about playing it, and I'm like, I don't really want to play a thing that's frustrating to me. And then it just sort of slides out of my mindset. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it's a big enough thing. It's just that, like, it's one more little barrier that stops me from picking your game over the hundreds of others I have on my list to play. If it takes me 10 hours to learn your system, like, you better hope your game is good enough apart from that to get me 10 hours into it. One thing I've noticed is that I have a lot less willingness to take time to learn control screens on mobile games. Maybe it's because they're free a lot of the time, or because there's much more limited options about how you do that. But like I find myself like really like I was picking a game up, just kind of going through a few options the other day on my phone, and I think I dropped one within probably 2 or 3 minutes just because I was like, nope, don't like these controls. So I don't know. It's sort of interesting that I have that reaction because I don't usually kind of prefer, free or paid games. I don't think about it that way. But there's something there, I think.
No, you're absolutely right. Like right now, like when it comes to mobile gaming, especially for mobile gaming where they actually need kind of a controller style set of inputs, where you have the stick and a set of buttons, that kind of thing. I'm fortunate enough that my current phone is actually a dual screen. So, and it's got a gaming option, which allows me to create my own controller and map it to the second screen to where I want it to go. It's actually really fascinating that this system, and credit to LG for designing this phone and this style, because it is one of the most interesting things I've seen happen, and it basically lets me use my phone as like a little DS in that respect. So I think we're getting to a point, like, hopefully, where we see that. And I know you can buy like controller adapters or something to stick your phone into to give you a little bit of that frequency, but I think there needs to be something a little bit more universal around that just to make it better. So this has been a really good start, but this is a really, really gimmicky system. So obviously, it's not going to be there for everybody, which is unfortunate, because this is a really, really great method. But
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up mobile game smell, because I hadn't been thinking about those. And honestly, I find most action games on mobile to be utterly unplayable.
It's weird. I was playing one the other day where it had like up and left were on the left side and down and right were on the right top, and I was like, where am I?
yeah, no, that totally makes sense. The only other thing that I like that really would make me probably get too over in, or just hate a game really, would be if I was forced into motion controls. On paper, they seem really, really, really cool, but I found them to be a little bit frustrating at times. Like, I learned this while I had tried out the motion controls for No More Heroes when it got released on the Switch, and they were really, really awkward. And the thing that this was originally a Wii game that might have actually forced those motion controls, I don't know if there was a non-motion option for the original on the Wii. So, um, but there is the option to do it with the Switch, because if you're playing it portably, you don't really have the luxury of being able to do that. So I really, really appreciate it, and it helps me enjoy the game a little bit more. But I mean, there was another one that was supposed to use the motion controls on the Wii called Dragon Quest Swords. And I love Dragon Quest games, but I have no idea if I would have really enjoyed it if I was forced to use motion with the Wiimote. So I don't know. I tend to typically avoid them.
Yeah, I tried it once. Actually, it, the original Xenoblade Chronicles, when I played it for the first time, I spent like the first hour running around with the Wiimote, and it was so hard. It was just so difficult. And like that, I had a lot less experience with that type of game back then to start with. But putting motion controls in my hand just made it like 300 times harder.
Yeah, yeah,
I would,
absolutely.
I might not have ever gotten out of the first area, frankly, if I'd been forced to stick with motion controls.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad we're kind of using them less and less, but the Switch is still, it still has the option, so we'll see if it tries anything funny, and we'll have to wait and see. But
Well, remember, like, very occasionally you can, if they keep it really simple, it can work. I mean, think of something like let's go let's go Pikachu and Eevee. Motion controls to throw the Pokeball.
yeah, no, that's fair. But like, if we're looking at an action RPG where it's lots and lots of hack and slash, I mean, that's going to wear down the arm first, and at the same time, Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I think it's gonna have to be like how severe and how often are you using those motion controls?
Well, that's just it. I mean, we all get stress injuries if we game too long as it is with a normal controller, much
Yeah.
less something as um, elaborate as motion controls.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah. All right, so that is going to be it for part one of our controls discussion. What do you guys think about your preferences? Is there anything here that's kind of made you think a little bit more about them? I know it's not something that people talk about fairly often, so I'd love to hear your perspectives on your controls, see if you got any enlightenment or kind of learned something about yourself after listening. So let us know. Email, send it to us at xpbillionaires@gmail.com or hit us up on our social media. You can find me on Twitter at BillionairesXP or check out my Instagram at Rayfe. Sky, where you at?
I'm at SkyKnightXP on Twitter and SkyKnight.xp on Instagram.
And Mel, where you at?
You can find me on Instagram at Feminist Gamer or on Twitter at Feminist Gamer 3. And I also have well, now it's not D&D. Now we have moved over to a new game system. But you can check out D4 Adventures, which is on Level Up TTV, and that is on Twitch.
So, and just to confirm, you guys call yourselves D4 Adventures, but the adventure is it's not walking on D4s, is it?
Well, in this specific game, we've decided it's a space-themed game, and our fuel source is D4s because we know they're the most powerful thing in the universe.
Okay, so they're just floating around. So there's no chance you're gonna step on one. Okay, good. All
but
right.
they might fly into your eye.
I feel like I could live with that by comparison. All right. And don't forget, xpbillionaires.ca is your one stop shop for everything that we do, from podcasts to written work to your ability to support us if you so choose. It is not a requirement, obviously, but the more love you spread, the happier we are, I'm sure. So check it out, xpbillionaires.ca. All right, so that is it for us this week. So just remember, whether up means down or right means right, make it your own way so that you can keep gaming, and we will see you next week.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.